Alright, good evening. This is actually try number 2, because the first time I made this video it took like half an hour and I rambled way too much. So we're going to get right to the point and do a cool 3D tracking of shadow orbs with weak auras. I'm sure that unit frames and whatnot are slowly adding it in, but in the meantime, if you want to track your orbs using something a little more complicated than just like Pitbull's little frame, this is the way to go about it. Keep in mind that while I'm showing it for shadow orbs, it works just as well for holy power or combo points or embers or whatever. So this is the basic idea. I have some orbs over here kind of chasing each other around, and they surround my unit frames. So we'll just get in combat and we'll make some... Every time I get a shadow orb, I get kind of a thing spinning around my nameplate here. And this is not my new UI. This is just where like a second interface I have to test things out. When I start raiding again, I'll probably have a UI pretty similar to what I'm used to. Anyway, so we've got 2 orbs, and you can see they're kind of chasing each other. Here's 3. So that lets me know that I'm, ready to fire off Devouring Plague. And when I do, they all go away. So pretty simple interface. Let's create that. I'm going to start by deleting this. And let's start from scratch. Step 1. Let's get some models. Now, I happen to know that a really nice one is Banish Spell Chest Purple. Let's see, it's a cool orb. You can come and choose and check under spells and just click through until you find something you like. Either way, I don't want to go through all that, so I'm going to paste that in. You can see it doesn't quite fit in the frame. It's kind of getting clipped at the top and on the sides. You can fix that by adjusting its Z and then adjusting its Y offset to compensate for it moving around in the frame. Probably a little more, say like minus 1.25. That looks pretty good. This is pretty big though, so I'm just going to resize this down, make them maybe 100 by 100. So that's good. Call this one Orb 1. Let's set, actually I'm just going to duplicate this a couple of times. Duplicate, call this Orb 2, and once more, Orb 3. So now we have 1 aura for each of our displays. Because we're going to want to set settings like load conditions and animations and their position, doing that by hand one at a time is kind of repetitive. So we're going to make use of a group to just kind of keep them all chunked together nicely. We're going to use just a regular group, that's perfectly fine. We don't need any of the dynamic group layout stuff. And so I'll just click the little arrows and put them in the group. There we go. Now we have this whole group that we can easily set things on. So start with some load conditions. Say in combat, player class is priest, talent spec is third tree because that's shadow, and that'll do. Keep in mind if you were doing a paladin and you were tracking holy power, you would obviously choose paladin, and I guess holy power is available in all of them, so you wouldn't really have to set a talent spec there. If you're doing a warlock, you would obviously choose embers or whatever. Anyway, let's go to triggers. Now, we can set them here at the group level and it'll apply to all of them, and then we just need to tweak them slightly. So our trigger is going to be, rather than an aura, because it's going to be a status, because shadow orbs are no longer auras, they're a secondary power resource, like holy power and combo points and that sort of thing. So we're going to switch this from health to shadow orbs. But obviously other classes like warlocks have their burning embers, combo points, chi power, holy power. So you can come in there and choose accordingly. Next we need to check this orb for shadow orbs. And I'm going to say activate when we have them greater than or equal to 1 shadow orb. And so that's applied the same trigger to all of these orbs in here. You can see if I click through, it's all the same. So all I need to do is make this one appear only when it's greater than or equal to 2, and this one only when it's greater than or equal to 3. So now we have our 3 orbs, and they'll trigger one after another as we generate new ones. You can see the animation is kind of stuttering a little bit. I'm going to just turn on the animate option and choose sequence 2. Typically the second sequence is the just maintain like the repeating animation. It's like a nice loop. The first one is typically the sort of appear animation, and some of the later ones will be things like fading out when it's over, that sort of thing. If you're using a character model, they might be like attack or dance or sleep, but in the case of spells, I find that typically number 2 is the one you want to use if you're going to have it on screen for a long time. Number 1 is a good choice if you want it to appear and then disappear. So we have our 3 orbs. We've got them all triggered up correctly. We have nice load conditions. Let's take the whole group, not the display, and let's just adjust its X and Y offset. So if we drag the group over here, you can see that we've got them, well, let's just say here, centered on my unit frame. So that's good. Let's do some animation now. So our start animation, I'm going to use preset, and I'm just going to use, let's say fade in. That's probably a good choice. And our end animation will be fade out. So that'll do. And the last thing I need to do is get the sort of looping animation, which is in main. That's the one that usually I avoid because I find it super obnoxious to have something animating for no reason. But for this example, let's play with it. So I'm going to choose custom, and the duration in seconds matters. This is how long it's going to take to complete one sort of lap. And I'm going to set it to let's say 2 seconds is probably fine. And then we're just going to come down here to slide, and slide is sort of change the X and Y position on the screen. So by default there's some presets in here, and we could write a custom function to do all sorts of crazy stuff. This is how I would create a display sort of like a logarithmic display or whatever. When there's no options in here, you can do the calculations yourself and return a value. But for us, they have this nice circle one, which isn't bad, and it's nice enough to give us 2 sliders to control the actual function. So if we set the X offset a little bit, you can see that now we have just kind of looping back and forth, and it's a pretty basic function. It's just like a sine of the time, basically. Well, it's kind of a cliche sign of the time, but anyway. And we can do the Y offset as well. It's maybe 50-ish. We'll just get something that sort of makes it look like it's orbiting my unit frames. Maybe a little more. There we go. That's pretty decent. It looks like it's just kind of spinning around. So let's get in combat, and we'll generate a shadow orb here with a Mind Blast. So there we go. It's appeared. It's kind of doing an orbit. So that looks okay. Let's get another shadow orb. And one problem that sometimes happens is the orbs kind of overlap a little bit. That can happen if Dragonroth procs, or you can see I've got 2 really close together but not quite overlapping. But sometimes they'll be right on top of each other, and it's kind of hard to see the display. Another way you can force it to happen is to exit combat with some shadow orbs. When you get in combat, they all start stacked up on top of each other, and they'll never spread out because they move at the same speed. So just a quick easy fix for that is to come in and slightly change the duration of the animation for these, and so that way one will be a little quicker than the other. So we'll take orb 1 and just make it like 1.5 because it's kind of lazy. Orb number 2, 1.75, and orb 3 will be 2. And so now, even though we start at the same place, they all sort of spread out, and they'll chase each other around and get closer and further apart, but generally you can easily tell there's 3. So that's kind of a nice fix for that. And then if we just Devouring Plague here, away they go. So it's a slightly different way to track your orbs. I know someone posted a similar concept on the MMO Champion forums, and people had a bit of a discussion about whether it was useful or not. I thought it was a neat idea, even if it's not the sort of thing I'm into, and I figured I'd show how to do it, especially with priests looking to build a new UI to track this new resource we've got. And maybe if you're playing a warlock or something like this will be useful for you too. Anyway, enjoy, and take care.